lion or you can be a sheep.
Hey everyone, for this video I'm going to be talking about Mikhaila Peterson. Mikhaila is the daughter of famous Canadian vivisected frog brought back to life, Jordan Peterson. And holy shit, dude. Sure, Jordan Peterson may have his dragon diagrams and his lobsters, but Mikhaila takes the wacky snake oil routine to a whole nother level with her all-beef diet, which she pitches with all the scamminess of an estranged high school friend sliding into your DMs to recruit you to Herbalife.
If I can heal myself from incurable illnesses, you can do it too. If you want to optimize your life and climb to the top of the dominance hierarchy and become a lion of a human, give me a follow.
And speaking of, I should probably come clean about the fact that I do kind of personally know Mikhaila since I went to school with her and her brother from elementary through to high school. In high school, I would say that we were about equally popular. Of course, now Mikhaila does have a lot more followers than me. Man, I wish when my dad misgendered people, we got rich and famous, instead of just having to have a learning moment. Growing up, Mikhaila suffered from a debilitating and mysterious autoimmune disorder, as well as a sensitivity to a wide variety of foods. By 17, she'd had both her ankle and hip replaced, and then at 25, going against her doctor's recommendations, she miraculously healed herself using a radically restrictive diet. But I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit here. Fuck, it's so hot. Shouldn't have worn this on the first hot day. By the way, don't at me for this. True, it's not always ethically produced, but when it stops being the best sports drink on the market, I'll stop endorsing it. Mikhaila was put into the limelight fairly early by her father, who brought her with him to appear on a public access show that he was a regular guest on. By the way, Jordan Peterson's early appearances on that show are bananas. In 2011, he was coming on wearing a trench coat and fedora and giving speeches full of incel talking points.
It's the testosterone-laden man who is most attractive when women are fertile. When it comes to this serious business of sex, women will choose a testosterone-charged world wrecker most of the time. Something was missing, Bullock says. Had she asked me, I would have said, not enough testosterone. My son wasn't allowed to throw a snowball, for example, in elementary school. It was against the rules for him to even pick up snow off the ground. Just what kind of man is emerging to replace the chauvinists of yesterday? Type 1, let's call him. Very popular in Japan.
Also, and this is the only time I'm going to be using like personal information in this video, but I'm pretty sure that I'm the reason why Jordan Peterson's son wasn't allowed to throw a snowball. When I was like 10, I accidentally hit a kid in the eye with a snowball, and like he had to go home. It was this big thing. Our school banned snowball fights. And you know, like obviously it was an accident and I was a kid. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but you know, like I don't feel good about that. And honestly, just thinking about it now, I would like to take this opportunity to apologize for single-handedly cucking Western masculinity. Anyway, in 2012, Mikhaila made her first appearance on the show for a segment where she and her father talk about the depression which runs in their family and how much antidepressants have improved their lives.
Walking around under a dark cloud. It's like when something terrible happens. So let's say your dog dies, and you feel the same way you do in the next week all the time. Yeah, I really don't know how I'm on antidepressants now, and I don't know how anybody in my family would have really survived without them.
Can I ask you a completely inappropriate question?
Yeah, I think so.
Most kids your age who go away to university are dating and have a pretty heavy social life and all that kind of thing. At what point in the conversation with a prospective, I don't even know if you have a boyfriend, but at what point in the conversation with a prospective paramour, let's put it that way, do you put this issue on the table and say, incidentally,
Anyway, 4 years later, Mikhaila returned to the show to report that instead of using antidepressants to treat her depression, she had completely eliminated it, as well as several other health issues, all by removing soy and gluten from her diet. And from here, things really took off. Inspired by the carnivore diet promoted by Sean Baker, Mikhaila soon cut out all veg. Sean Baker has, by the way, had his medical license revoked, and according to blood tests which he released, he is at a very high risk of getting diabetes. Mikhaila then went further until she was eating nothing but beef, salt, and water. Oh, and also vodka and bourbon, but we'll get back to that later. Oh, also, Mikhaila is really into fasting, like, to a scary extent.
I fast as well. It naturally happened, part of being a carnivore.
I'm on fire. This fast is epic. I'm never eating again. That is how I feel. I'm definitely going beyond 7 days. I'm so productive. My sense of smell is sharpened. Can you sharpen a sense of smell? I feel like you can. You can. Get to a 6-day fast and you'll know that you can sharpen a sense of smell. My eyesight is better. My mood is stable. I feel so good. I have accomplished so much. I feel the whole breatharian thing. As if I needed to get more controversial, I may become a breatharian. So yeah, I think I'm going to stick it out beyond 7. Plus then I can be like, Dad, remember that 10-day fast you did? 11 days, sucker. Just so I can say that.
I haven't eaten in 10 days and I haven't slept in 12. Mikhaila, if you're watching this, you and I are going to get rich together. How? Think about it. What does everyone need? Cell phones. You and I are going to start a telecom company. Mikhaila soon got her mom and dad on the same diet, which Jordan infamously plugged on Joe Rogan.
Apple cider. Like, what was it doing?
Sulfites in it.
What was it doing to you?
Oh, it produced an overwhelming sense of impending doom. Yeah,
From fucking cider.
Oh, I didn't sleep that month. I didn't sleep for 25 days. I didn't sleep at all.
Leading to the diet being covered on a wide variety of news outlets and Mikhaila appearing on Joe Rogan herself. All this time we thought we were curing the meat. Turns out it was the meat that was curing us.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mexie, and I'm here to inform you about the paleo or caveman diet. And I should start by saying that I don't really like the word inform. What I'm here to do is inspire you to live as long and as healthily as God created you to do. And to do that, I'm going to talk to you about health. I'm going to talk to you about living naturally, like we have for 10,000 years. When you think about people who lived extraordinary long, healthy lives, the image of the caveman naturally appears. I learned these things while I was practicing as a doctor before the quote-unquote federal government revoked my license, that in ancient times our ancestors were free from and in fact had never even discovered autoimmune disorders like heart disease, diabetes, obesity, or anxiety. This all changed when we moved over to the standard American diet, or what I like to call the sad diet. By returning to this traditional way of life, we will return to a time of pure health and a purer, more traditional way of being.
Mikhaila kept on evangelizing her diet, starting a blog called Don't Eat That, meant to help other people dealing with the same health problems as her, which is honestly pretty noble. Maybe a bit less so when you consider that she was charging $80 for a half-hour-long Skype consultation where she'd basically just tell people to use beef fat instead of oil.
So here you are on this diet now, and you've started to, what are you doing, consulting people online?
So I am now, yeah. I started about a month ago.
And what does that involve?
People Skype me and basically want to see me and how I'm still alive, only eating beef. And then they ask me how to cook and things because nobody knows how to cook meat without anything on it. Well, how do you cook? Like, how do you cook with just beef? They don't know what to do. They're like, what oil do you use? I don't use oil. I think most of these people, I've been talking to a lot of, I use tallow.
Now, Mikhaila has gotten a lot of shit for these consultations, and in fairness, she has stopped doing them. This may be due to a change of heart, although I also feel like paying $80 to be told to use tallow isn't the most popular genre of findom. Also, her blog now just redirects to her personal website, which at time of recording she hasn't posted to in 7 months. Although, strangely, she does still call herself the author and CEO of Don't Eat That and The Lion Diet. This all kind of begs the question, though, what does Mikhaila actually do? She presents herself as this alpha girl boss, and she makes this sales pitch that sounds like she's trying to sell you something.
The Lion Diet is strict, and it'll fix your problems and turn you into a boss human.
But no, she just half-assedly admins a Facebook group called the Lion Club, which, if you're looking for before and after pictures that look identical, and the saddest pictures of disgustingly cooked steaks, amazing. But I'm pretty sure that her main and probably only source of income is her Instagram account where she just posts sponsored content. Which, honestly, if she just wants to be an influencer, it's better than her scamming people. Although, I'm not a fan of her posting stuff like this.
I've decided that the government should realistically reopen businesses. So that's number one. We need to reopen the country. Number two, I think the ramifications of closing down entire countries far outweigh the benefits we're going to see.
So, first of all, Mikhaila, you don't need a mask if you're just alone in your car. And secondly, your job is just posting. At this point, I should probably get this over with. Is eating nothing but beef good for you? No, of course not. Beef doesn't cure every problem, okay? It's not weed. I should also just take this opportunity to say that you weed heads make me sick. I do not use marijuana because I, for one, would like to go to heaven. My brand is confusing. The main piece of evidence for Mikhaila's diet is the work of Wilhelmer Stephenson.
Good evening, Dr. Stephenson. Will you tell me the correct way to pronounce your name?
Wilhelmer. The accent's on the first syllable.
Wilhelmer.
Wilhelmer.
Stephenson was an explorer who became an advocate for a carnivore diet after spending time living with Inuit people. However, what most proponents of the carnivore diet miss is that the Inuit diet was a lot more varied than Stephenson had thought, and also that the Inuits were not healthier than their European counterparts. To Stephenson's credit, though, he was one of the first explorers to recognize Inuit women for their culinary knowledge. He was also a Jewish socialist, so you better keep his unpronounceable name out of your mouth. As for the rest of Mikhaila's evidence, it's pretty much purely anecdotal. And to be fair here, Mikhaila is generally pretty careful about saying that her diet is not necessarily for everyone, just people dealing with the same medical issues as her. That said, Mikhaila does seem to believe that her diet is the cure for pretty much everything from obesity to diabetes to arthritis to Lyme disease to depression to just being a beta.
Climb to the top of the dominance hierarchy.
Not to mention that her 2-year-old daughter is on an only slightly less restrictive diet.
Well, it's really hard for me to feed my kid things that make me sick. But watching her, like, I've watched obviously like a hawk and having a little bit of fruit, like she has to eat her meat and then she gets like fruit or parsnips or carrots or something, like a little bit.
Which, meanwhile, basically every medical or dietary expert out there agrees that eating nothing but beef is a terrible idea, one that could cause heart disease, diabetes, vitamin deficiency, and even colon or kidney cancer. However, Mikhaila and both her parents who are on the diet say that they're doing fine. Mikhaila says that she feels great. Her mom just recovered from kidney cancer, and her dad is recuperating from his recent medically induced coma. It's just a very normal family. Mikhaila generally just waves away any criticisms of her diet from so-called medical experts by just saying that their methodologies must be flawed, which is pretty funny since a lot of the time she doesn't really seem to know what she's talking about. In her Joe Rogan interview, it's kind of awesome. Like, Joe knows enough about fitness stuff to call her out when she says something ridiculous, but then he'll just follow it up with something even crazier.
The one thing I found really helps
The only thing I found that helps these reactions is an infrared sauna. If I get in there like once a day and sweat.
Only an infrared one. What about a regular one? Do you know?
Honestly, no, I don't know.
You don't know. There's a new company that's making an infrared sauna that you work out in. It's got a chin-up bar in, and it's got all these like resistance cables. And he said basically crazier things have happened, and that you reported still having symptoms when you get sick, even on a carnivore diet. And he said this shows that the carnivore diet is a symptomatic treatment. It's not because she's removed the offending antigen.
What?
Yeah.
I don't even know if I understood all that properly.
And then I wasn't really sure where to bring this up, but we have to talk about Mikhaila's C. difficile infection. C. difficile is a bacterial infection that can be antibiotic resistant and is pretty serious. Most people who get it would and should go to a doctor, but not our girl Mikhaila. The first thing that she tried to treat her bacterial infection was obviously, say it with me now, fasting.
The C. diff infection was really bad. I was like, well, maybe I can fast it away. Like, I don't know. Maybe that would work. It doesn't.
Sure, easy mistake. Anyone could have got that wrong. So then...
And I was on the verge of being hospitalized for the C. diff infection. And I found this research paper where they took fecal matter transplants, double encapsulated them in pills and swallowed them. So they hit the small intestine instead of the large intestine. And so I did that like myself in my kitchen with samples I bought from the Taymount clinic.
So let's break that down a little bit. So fecal transplants are actually a fairly legit medical practice. They're still experimental, but they're actually showing some pretty promising results. They're generally only done after antibiotics have been shown to be ineffective because there's obvious hazards associated with working with human shit. Mikhaila read a study online, went to the clinic, and bought human shit, which in her home kitchen she put into a pill and swallowed. Imagine if your friend was sick, and so they just went out and bought a pint of blood and gave themselves a DIY transfusion. That would probably be safer than what Mikhaila did. Also, I just want to say that writing a script about Mikhaila Peterson has been ridiculously difficult just because she just keeps on going out and saying increasingly ridiculous shit. Like, just in the time that I've been filming this video, she went on a podcast to say that birth control is immoral?
The brain is the largest muscle in the body. Crying is cardio. Only real gamers can understand sacrifice. Hey everyone, today I'm going to tell you about the secret exercise routine that will be able to completely transform your body and mind and allow your body back to a state of natural harmony while looking like you're cut out of wood. This exercise plan is called the Feral Feline Fitness Regime, and with it, you'll be able to mold your body so that you too can have the physique and athleticism of a rugged, hungry, ferocious feral cat. Now listen, I want to be fully honest with you, so I'm going to say this up front. This fitness plan will solve all of your problems. So, what is the Feral Cat Exercise Plan? It's exactly what it sounds like. You're going to live your nights as a lost cat, scavenging for food to survive. Sounds simple? Sounds easy, right? Well, let me tell you, a lot can go wrong. The first step is finding a colony of feral cats, joining their ranks, and establishing yourself as the leader. That's the easy part. From there, it's all about form. If your posture is wrong, you could seriously risk permanently damaging your backs, legs, arms, and any exposed skin, and your tail, which you will develop. But if you really put in the effort and succeed, well, your neighbors are literally going to have to call the city to get you and your comrades out of their garbage.
But perhaps thinking about this scientifically is the wrong approach entirely. Perhaps the better way to understand what Mikhaila's doing here is as a work of art. Sorry. The French philosopher Michel Foucault wrote of a concept which... What the fuck was that? Anyways, Michael Foucat did a bit called Technologies of Self. Unlike technologies of control in which an external power acts on the individual, technologies of self are self-directed processes of self-mastery through the application of practices and behaviors which are unaffected by external customs and bureaucracies. Different technologies of self can tell us about the different cultures and ideologies that produce them. For example, in an essay by Chad Mazzola, he wrote,
"If the zeitgeist of 1968 could be expressed as LSD and the Grateful Dead, then 2018 was modafinil and podcasts at 1.5 times speed."
I have never felt more seen. Foucault linked this form of self-care in which the perfection of one's body is analogous to a work of art to a classical Greek idea of morality.
The elaboration of one's life as a personal work of art, even if it obeyed certain collective norms, was at the center, it seems to me, of moral experience, of the will to morality in antiquity.
In a paper by Matthew Shnirov and Jonathan David Geksik, they argue that the alternative health movement makes a lot of sense once you think about it as treating the body as a work of art in the classical aesthetic sense. That is, an aesthetics in which nature is seen as this perfect, objective standard by which all art should be judged and should try to replicate. This is before those fucking postmodernists showed up being all like, "Ooh, why is nature perfect? What even is natural? Who decides what's objective? In the shadow of 2 world wars, do humans deserve beauty? What if the real virus is humanity?" Oh yeah, I don't like post-structuralism. Whereas for classical aesthetics, nature can be objectively and meaningfully understood. This objective meaning exists outside of any historical or social context and is not invented but rather discovered by humans, and can therefore be used as an unchanging standard by which we can judge everything else. As this relates to art, think Michelangelo seeing a perfect statue hidden inside the marble. And similarly, alternative health practitioners talk about returning to nature to reclaim a lost state of perfect health, hidden beneath all these contaminations of our modern world. The reason I bring all this up is because, while at this point I think it's pretty clear that Mikhaila Peterson's all-beef diet doesn't make much, if any, sense medically, if we think about Peterson's philosophy though, it's pretty understandable why a diet like this would be so appealing. Jordan Peterson is extremely concerned with maintaining traditional gender roles. He's particularly worried about feminists attacking masculinity and then replacing it with femininity, which he associates with chaos. And I simply cannot imagine a diet that fits more perfectly into the Peterson worldview than one in which we are being poisoned by soy, objectively the most feminine of all legumes. And the only cure is a steak dinner. Let's also come back to the fact that in the early days of Mikhaila's diet, she said that she could drink whiskey. This is a woman who regularly talks about how consuming trace amounts of black pepper will ruin her life. But wash a pepperless steak down with some Jack? Oh, fuck yeah, bud. I bet an early version of this diet included a cigar before bed too, but she cut it because it was just a little too on the nose. In short, this diet is not about being healthy. It's about LARPing as Ron Swanson. In their paper, Shnirov and Geksik note that pretty much all alternative health practices have 2 basic phases: detoxification and rejuvenation. The obvious part of detoxification is purging all the evil chemicals or whatever from your body, but an interesting thing here is that curing your initial illness is not rejuvenation, but rather still part of the detox. Rejuvenation comes much later once you achieve this platonic ideal of perfect health. Another interesting thing here is that detoxing is not just about eating healthy or doing a juice cleanse. It also usually involves going off your meds. And this is something that the Petersons emphasize constantly.
I stopped taking them and I felt like fantastic. And
hang on, you stopped taking them entirely?
Yeah.
You are off antidepressants
I'm
now?
off, and I stopped all my medication, and I stopped my antidepressants in November.
I'm better now, probably, than I've ever been in my life, and I haven't been taking antidepressants for a whole year.
I think that one of the creepiest things in all of this is how Mikhaila seems to feel about the first time she talked about her depression.
This is Dad and I in 2011, before any dietary intervention.
I really don't know how I'm on antidepressants now, and I don't know how anybody in my family would have really survived without them.
Not pretty.
She seems to present that younger version of herself being happy to finally be treating her depression as her all-time low. And we have a pretty solid case study for where an ideology that allows for whiskey but not antidepressants leads. In 2019, due to his wife's cancer, Jordan Peterson became extremely depressed and increased his dosage of antidepressants. In early 2020, he had a paradoxical reaction and needed to be taken off his meds, which he had become addicted to. In her video addressing the subject, Mikhaila made it very clear that Jordan Peterson was physically addicted but not mentally addicted. This is a little bit sketchy, but also Jordan Peterson is not a fan of drug addicts, and so without opining on whether what she said is true or not, I think that that is why she had to make that point. Instead of tapering off, which is what almost any doctor would recommend, Peterson and his family flew to Russia, where the doctors, as Mikhaila put it, had the guts to rapidly detox him by putting him in a medically induced coma. Now, while what's been going on with Mikhaila and her dad are obviously different situations, I think that they do both spring from the same red meat-pilled version of goop. In Shnirov and Geksik's paper, they try to tie alternative health practices to revolutionary political potential, and while I do think that this is where their analysis is at its weakest, I do see how this type of thing could be appealing to a certain type of person. Receiving any type of medical treatment from an expert genuinely does involve a surrender of agency and bodily autonomy, and I get why someone who's been fucked over by the medical system in the past would rather just follow their gut, even if that means eating nothing but beef, salt, and occasionally human shit. While I don't know for sure if Mikhaila believes her own bullshit, the people who follow her definitely do, and I feel bad for them. Mikhaila says herself that these are desperate people looking for anything to help them, and I see it as a failure of the healthcare system that they wound up coming to her. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Big thank you to Mexie and Thought Slime for making an appearance in this video. Big thank you to Jose and Hardcore Lime for providing their voices. By the way, Hardcore Lime has an amazing video on the same subject, and we worked together a little bit on this video. Big shout out to him. There is one criticism I would make of his channel, and it is that it has nowhere near enough subscribers. So if you like this video, please go check out his channel and help him rectify this mistake that he made. And big thank you to Will Jarvis for making the fantastic music that we've been listening to in this video. Big thank you to my patrons who helped make this video possible. As this horrible year continues, it's feeling increasingly inappropriate for me, a white dude, to be asking you to give me money. I will be donating all of my Patreon money from this video to the Black Legal Action Center, and then matching that with a donation out of my own pocket for the same amount. If you liked this video, it would mean a lot to me if you did the same. Anyway, big thank you to the patrons I have, especially Arana's Calling, Beth Solman, Comrade Sai, Isso-kun, Jacqueline E. Gother, Jesse Nyland, John Price, Kells, and Mr. Awesome Be Cool.